The story begins deep in the heart of a dense, untamed forest, where towering pines and maples create a cathedral of green, broken only by shafts of sunlight piercing through the canopy. This is the world of our protagonist, the lumberjack, a man of imposing stature, muscles honed by years of hard labor and hands roughened by axe and saw. Yet, beneath his rugged exterior lies a quiet loneliness that has become his constant companion. The forest, with its whispering leaves and the distant call of birds, has been both his refuge and his prison. He lives in a modest wooden cabin perched on a small clearing, surrounded by the endless stretch of wilderness. The cabin itself is simple but sturdy, a fireplace for warmth, a few hand-carved pieces of furniture, and the tools of his trade meticulously organized. It is a home built with care, but one that echoes with the emptiness of isolation. His daily routine is precise and solitary. Mornings begin before sunrise with the rhythmic chopping of wood, the scent of pine filling the crisp air. He moves through the forest with quiet efficiency, marking trees, felling them with practiced swings, and hauling logs back to his cabin. Despite the physical demands, there is a meditative quality to his labor, a sense of connection with nature that fills the void left by human companionship. Yet, even as he works, his mind drifts to memories of the past lost family, friendships that never lasted, the one love he let slip away. These recollections bring a pang of sadness that he buries under layers of stoicism. The lumberjack's solitude is not just physical but emotional. Villagers from the nearby town speak of him in hushed tones, admiring his strength but noting his distance. Children rarely dare approach, and adults respect his privacy, leaving him to his quiet existence. He has grown accustomed to it, perhaps too accustomed. Nights are the hardest. The crackling of the fire provides only temporary comfort as shadows dance across the walls, reminding him of what he has lost and the emptiness that remains. He reads old letters and photographs, relics of a life he once dreamed of having before the forest claimed him completely. Yet, there is a subtle longing within him, a yearning for connection that he refuses to acknowledge fully. He notices small signs of life with a tender eye, a bird building a nest, a deer grazing cautiously at the edge of the clearing, or the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. These glimpses of life stir a dormant part of his heart, hinting at the possibility of something more than survival and solitude. The forest, while a haven, is also a mirror, reflecting back his isolation and the quiet ache for family he has long suppressed. This introduction sets the emotional foundation for the story. The lumberjack's solitude is not mere loneliness. It is a protective shell forged by disappointment and hardship, yet threaded with a latent capacity for love and care. It establishes him as a character who is both strong and vulnerable, a man shaped by the wilderness around him and the absence of human connection. By the end of Part 1, readers understand not only where he lives and what he does, but also the emotional landscape that makes him uniquely prepared to face the arrival of the girl, a life that will challenge his solitude and awaken the deep reservoirs of compassion he has long kept hidden. The peace of the lumberjack. Forest life is shattered one late afternoon when he hears the faint sound of someone crying near the edge of his clearing. At first, he thinks it might be the wind or an animal, but the sound is unmistakably human, high-pitched, trembling, and full of desperation. Hesitant but alert, he sets aside his axe and moves toward the noise, his instincts sharpened by years of solitude and survival in the wilderness. What he finds changes the course of his life. Emerging from the underbrush is a young girl, barely out of her teens, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her clothes are torn and muddied, evidence of a long, difficult journey. Her belly is visibly swollen with pregnancy, and she leans heavily on a makeshift stick as if every step is a battle. She is terrified, her wide eyes darting to every shadow, every movement among the trees. There is a fragility about her, but also a fierce, raw determination that hints at the struggles she has endured. The lumberjack approaches cautiously, not wanting to scare her, but his presence alone seems to offer a strange comfort. Through broken words and hesitant explanations, he learns the horrifying truth. The girl has been betrayed by her own brother, the one person she should have been able to trust. Sold to someone else, forced into a life she never wanted. She fled before it was too late, risking everything to escape. The lumberjack listens in silence, absorbing the weight of her story. Anger rises in him not just for her suffering but for the injustice of a world where such betrayal can happen. Yet, beneath the anger is a deeper emotion he has long denied himself: compassion. Despite the dangers of harboring a stranger, especially one in her condition, he feels an instinctive pull to protect her. There is something about her courage, her vulnerability, and her trust in a complete stranger that awakens a sense of purpose he has not felt in years. After a tense moment of hesitation, he gestures toward his cabin, silently offering her shelter. The girl, unsure and wary, studies him carefully. She has learned that trust is dangerous, that people can hurt you even when they seem kind. Yet, the sincerity in his eyes, the quiet strength in his stance, and the lack of immediate judgment convince her to follow him, if only for survival. The journey back to the cabin is tense and filled with unspoken words. Every crack of a branch, every rustle in the undergrowth makes the girl flinch, while the lumberjack remains vigilant, scanning the forest for threats. His protective instincts, honed by years of living in isolation, come to the forefront. As they reach the cabin, the girl hesitates at the threshold, unsure whether she is stepping into safety or another trap. The lumberjack gives her space, letting her make the choice herself. This small act of respect and patience is the first thread in the fragile web of trust beginning to form between them. Inside the cabin, the girl is cautious, touching nothing, keeping her eyes low, and maintaining a tense posture. The lumberjack quietly prepares a simple meal, not pressing her to speak, simply offering sustenance and warmth. This simple act, sharing food, offering a safe space, marks the beginning of a new chapter in both their lives. The forest, once a place of solitude, now holds the promise of connection, responsibility, and perhaps redemption. By the end of Part 2, the reader sees a stark contrast between the lumberjack's solitary existence and the sudden, chaotic intrusion of the girl's life. It sets up the central tension of the story: a man hardened by loneliness and a girl traumatized by betrayal, brought together by circumstance, each unaware of the profound impact they will have on one another. The stage is set for trust, care, and the gradual building of a bond that will evolve into something far deeper than either expects. The days following the girl's arrival are quiet, tentative, and filled with an undercurrent of tension. The lumberjack and the girl live under the same roof, yet there is a careful distance between them, each testing boundaries, gauging intentions, and learning to navigate an unfamiliar life together. For the girl, trust does not come easily. The betrayal by her brother has left deep scars, and every gesture of kindness from a stranger is met with suspicion. For the lumberjack, extending care and protection requires patience and a willingness to confront his own long-suppressed need for connection. Their routine begins to intertwine naturally. Each morning, he rises before dawn, chopping wood and preparing the cabin for the day. She follows quietly, helping where she can, sweeping the floor, tending to the small garden, fetching water from the nearby stream. Their communication is minimal at first, limited to nods, short sentences, and gestures. Yet, in these small acts of shared labor, trust begins to bud. The girl starts to see the lumberjack not just as a strong protector, but as a man of integrity and reliability, someone who respects her boundaries rather than forcing himself into her life. Evenings are the most difficult for the girl. The ache of her pregnancy, combined with memories of betrayal, leaves her restless and fearful. The lumberjack notices but does not press her. Instead, he quietly tends to the fire, prepares a meal, or fetches blankets. His patience speaks louder than words, a constant, unspoken reassurance that she is safe. Slowly, she begins to mirror some of his gestures, leaving a dish by the table for him, offering a faint smile, or hesitantly speaking about her past, not in detail, but in fragments that hint at her story. Every small interaction is a step forward, a delicate weaving of trust in a world that has shown her only cruelty. The forest around the cabin mirrors this tentative connection. Birds return to the clearing, curious deer graze nearby, and the rustle of the leaves seems less foreboding. The lumberjack takes her on short walks, pointing out edible plants, teaching her basic survival skills, and showing her how to read the signs of the forest. Initially, she is hesitant, unsure if she can rely on him, but as he demonstrates his knowledge and protective instincts, a sense of safety begins to take root. In these moments, the girl begins to realize that not everyone is capable of betrayal. Some people, like the lumberjack, act out of genuine care. Tensions occasionally flare, however. The girl's fear leads to sudden outbursts or attempts to flee the cabin, which the lumberjack calmly but firmly prevents, never resorting to anger or force. These moments are crucial. They teach her that boundaries can be respected even in the presence of authority, and that strength need not be threatening. For the lumberjack, these incidents reinforce the depth of her trauma and the patience required to help her heal. Slowly, a rhythm develops, a delicate balance of proximity and space, of protection and freedom. By the end of the reader sees a subtle but profound transformation. The lumberjack's once rigid solitude softens, allowing empathy and tenderness to guide his actions. The girl, while still cautious, begins to see him as a safe haven rather than a potential threat. Trust is no longer a distant concept, but a fragile reality, built piece by piece through shared experiences, quiet gestures, and unwavering presence. The stage is set for deeper emotional connection, setting the foundation for love, reliance, and mutual healing that will define the chapters to come. Life in the forest, though beginning to feel safer and more nurturing, is far from free of threats. The girl's past catches up with her, bringing danger to the doorstep of the lumberjack's secluded cabin. It starts subtly rustling in the underbrush that doesn't belong to the wind, distant voices carried on the cold evening air, footprints near the clearing that suggest someone has been watching them. The lumberjack notices immediately. Years of living alone in the wilderness have honed his instincts. Nothing escapes his attention. He senses the tension before the girl even recognizes it, and his protective instincts intensify. The girl's fear returns in full force. Memories of betrayal, the betrayal of her own brother, and the threat of those who wish her harm leave her shaken. She is restless at night, her dreams filled with shadows of menacing figures, and she clutches the lumberjack's coat or blanket for reassurance. He responds with quiet calm, refusing to let panic take over. His presence is steady, a wall of safety against the encroaching danger. This dynamic highlights a deepening trust. The girl begins to understand that he is willing to risk himself to keep her safe and that she can rely on him. Soon, the threat becomes tangible. The brother or the men he has sold her to arrive in the forest, tracking her movements. The tension escalates as the lumberjack takes deliberate measures to protect them both. He knows the forest intimately. Hidden paths, narrow ravines, and natural barriers become tools in his strategy. He teaches the girl to move quietly, to notice subtle signs of danger, and to trust her instincts as well as his guidance. These lessons are more than survival skills. They are exercises in empowerment, slowly giving her a sense of agency in a world where she has felt powerless. Conflict arises during a harrowing encounter in the forest. One evening, shadows appear near the clearing, and the lumberjack realizes the intruders are close. He positions the girl in a hidden spot and confronts the threat with a mix of cunning and raw strength. Trees creak under his deliberate movements, and the air is thick with suspense. The girl watches from a distance, terrified yet mesmerized by his courage. The encounter is tense, the danger real, but he succeeds in keeping them both safe. This incident cements their bond further. She sees his bravery not as aggression but as protection, a stark contrast to the betrayal and harm she has experienced before. Amid the danger, moments of humanity shine through. The lumberjack tends to her anxiety, speaking softly when she trembles, preparing meals to sustain both their bodies, and finding small, reassuring touches of normalcy amidst the chaos. These gestures underscore the central theme. Safety and care are acts of love, especially in a world filled with uncertainty and danger. The girl, in turn, begins to respond not fully, but enough to show she is learning to trust again. Her eyes no longer dart in panic at every sound, and she begins to anticipate his protective actions, recognizing the reliability he offers in stark contrast to the betrayal of her brother. By the end, the external threats have not entirely disappeared, but the lumberjack and the girl have faced danger together, testing and solidifying their fragile trust. The girl's fear, once overwhelming, is now tempered by the knowledge that someone will protect her at all costs. The lumberjack, once content with solitude, now carries a sense of responsibility that transforms his existence. The forest, which once symbolized isolation and danger, now becomes a shared space of survival and connection. This part of the story sets the stage for deeper emotional intimacy, highlighting that trust forged in the crucible of danger is often the strongest. After surviving the immediate danger, a quieter, more intimate chapter begins in the lumberjack and the girl's relationship. The forest, though still wild and untamed, becomes a backdrop for emotional exploration where the walls they've built around themselves slowly start to crumble. The lumberjack, who has always masked his loneliness with stoicism and hard work, begins to reveal glimpses of his inner world. Likewise, the girl, still cautious but increasingly comfortable in his presence, allows herself to share pieces of her past. This mutual sharing of vulnerabilities deepens the trust they've been carefully building. It starts in small, seemingly mundane moments. As they sit by the fire in the evenings, the lumberjack talks quietly about his past, not in great detail, but enough to hint at a life shaped by loss and solitude. He recalls childhood memories of family dinners, of laughter that now seems distant, and of moments of love that ended too soon. His voice is low and tinged with nostalgia, a sound that is both foreign and comforting to the girl. She listens silently at first, unsure how to respond, but gradually begins to feel a connection to the humanity behind his rugged exterior. The girl, in turn, begins to share her own experiences, though cautiously. She speaks of her brother's betrayal, the fear and humiliation she endured, and her uncertainty about the future. Her words are fragmented at first, punctuated by pauses and trembling, but the lumberjack's steady presence and absence of judgment encourage her to continue. In sharing her pain, she is not just recounting events, she is laying bare her soul, testing whether trust can survive in a world that has shown her nothing but betrayal. The act itself is transformative, as it allows her to reclaim some measure of control over her narrative. Through these exchanges, their bond evolves from simple companionship into something more profound. They begin to see each other not just as protector and protected, but as two flawed, human beings seeking understanding and acceptance. There is a growing empathy that binds them, a recognition that both have endured hardships and heartbreak that have shaped who they are. The lumberjack's tough exterior softens, revealing tenderness and patience that surprises even him, while the girl's guarded demeanor begins to yield to moments of genuine laughter and lightness. The forest, too, plays a symbolic role in this part of the story. Just as the trees bend with the wind but do not break, so too do the characters begin to bend under the weight of their emotional burdens without shattering. They share simple joys, a walk along a sun-dappled trail, the harvesting of fresh herbs, or the quiet observation of wildlife, which serve as gentle reminders that life can still hold beauty amidst hardship. These small, shared moments create a foundation of intimacy that is built not on grand gestures, but on everyday acts of trust, kindness, and attention. Yet, their journey toward vulnerability is not without friction. Old fears resurface, particularly for the girl, as moments of anxiety or flashbacks remind her of past trauma. The lumberjack's challenge is to meet these moments with understanding rather than frustration, proving that his commitment is unwavering. Each time he succeeds, trust deepens, and each time he falters, they both learn the delicate balance required to nurture a relationship built on shared pain and mutual support. By the end of a subtle transformation has occurred. The lumberjack is no longer just a solitary figure in the forest. He has become a confidant, a protector, and a companion. The girl, once wary and defensive, begins to allow herself to hope, to feel safety, and to envision a future that does not depend on fear. Their vulnerabilities, once sources of weakness, are now the threads that weave them together, forming the first true semblance of family in a world that has denied them both. As the days stretch into weeks, the quiet companionship between the lumberjack and the girl begins to evolve into something more tender and intimate. The bond forged through survival, trust, and shared vulnerability starts to blossom into an emotional connection that neither fully anticipates nor understands at first. It is not a sudden spark of romance, but a slow, almost imperceptible shift, a gentle recognition that their lives are becoming inseparably intertwined. The lumberjack, who has always measured relationships in terms of necessity or survival, begins to notice the girl in new ways. He observes the subtle grace in her movements, the soft curve of her smile when she thinks no one is watching, and the way her presence brings warmth to the cabin that had been cold and silent for years. He is careful with his feelings, cautious not to overstep boundaries, aware that her past trauma makes trust fragile and that any misstep could shatter the bond they have painstakingly built. Yet, he feels an undeniable pull toward her, a desire to protect her not just from danger, but from loneliness itself. The girl, in turn, senses the shift in their relationship. She notices the lumberjack's attention to small details, how he remembers her favorite way to have tea the way he instinctively clears a place for her at the table, or how he instinctively scans the forest whenever she moves beyond the cabin. She is startled by the warmth and care he shows, so different from the cruelty and indifference she has known. Slowly, she begins to allow herself to enjoy his company, to linger in his presence, and even to reciprocate small gestures of kindness. There is a tension in these interactions, a quiet electricity born of trust and unspoken emotion. Moments of intimacy emerge naturally, often in the most ordinary circumstances. They share stories while working together gathering firewood, tending the garden, or preparing meals, and these shared labors become opportunities for connection. Laughter begins to seep into the cabin, tentative at first, then more genuine. A brush of hands while passing a basket, a lingering glance over the fire, or the quiet comfort of sitting side by side reading or talking, these small subtle acts signal a growing affection. Neither rushes the process. Both are learning to navigate feelings carefully, mindful of past pain but increasingly open to possibility. The forest itself mirrors their growing connection. Just as the seasons shift soft sunlight illuminating the treetops, new buds forming on the branches, their relationship begins to bloom. The woods, once a place of isolation and danger, now becomes a sanctuary where trust, care, and the stirrings of love can grow. The girl begins to associate the forest not only with safety, but also with the warmth of companionship, and the lumberjack experiences the rare joy of sharing his world with someone who appreciates it. Yet, this emerging connection is not without complications. The girl's pregnancy brings moments of worry and vulnerability, reminding both of the fragility of life and the weight of responsibility. The lumberjack's protective instincts intensify, blending care with subtle displays of affection. There are times when emotions run high, where fear, gratitude, or frustration surface, leading to honest and sometimes raw exchanges that deepen their understanding of one another. Through these challenges, they learn that love is not simply a feeling but an active choice, a commitment to stand together through uncertainty and risk. By the end the reader can sense the subtle transformation. What began as companionship and mutual protection has grown into a tender emotional bond. The lumberjack is no longer merely a solitary guardian, and the girl is no longer just a survivor seeking refuge. Together, they begin to explore the possibilities of affection and connection, building the foundation of a relationship that promises not only love, but also the stability and family that each has longed for. Their hearts, cautiously opening, prepare the way for the deeper trials and emotional intensity to come. The fragile equilibrium the lumberjack and the girl have built is abruptly shattered by a crisis that tests their bond in every way. The event is sudden and unavoidable, a stark reminder that the world outside the forest is harsh and unforgiving. Perhaps the girl goes into premature labor, her body straining under the weight of her pregnancy, or the men who betrayed her discover her location and come closer than ever. Whatever the form of the crisis, it forces both characters to confront their deepest fears, their vulnerabilities, and the strength of the connection that has been forming between them. The day begins like any other, but the forest carries a sense of tension in its stillness. The girl, already weak from exhaustion or illness, collapses or cries out in sudden pain, signaling the onset of danger. The lumberjack, who has grown to know every nuance of her movements, reacts immediately. He drops whatever task he was performing and rushes to her side, his mind a whirlwind of urgency and protective instinct. Every second counts, and his hands, so often steady in the rhythms of labor, now move with desperate precision. The forest, which has been a place of comfort and routine, becomes a tense arena where life and survival hang in the balance. Throughout this ordeal, the girl experiences intense fear and panic. Memories of past betrayals resurface, blending with the immediate physical or emotional stress of the moment. She feels utterly powerless, yet the lumberjack's presence, his steady voice, calm touch, and unwavering determination grounds her. It is in this moment of extreme vulnerability that their bond is most profoundly revealed. She clings to him not just for safety, but for the reassurance that someone cares enough to fight for her, that she is no longer alone in facing life's harsh realities. The lumberjack, too, is tested beyond his physical strength. Emotionally, he is confronted with the enormity of responsibility and the depth of his feelings. He realizes that he cannot simply be a protector from a distance. He must engage fully, putting his own fears and past traumas aside to ensure the girl's survival. This crisis strips away the remaining walls he has built around his heart, forcing him to acknowledge the deep affection and attachment that have grown over weeks of shared hardship. Every decision he makes is charged with the stakes of their survival and the recognition that failure is not an option. Amid the chaos, moments of tenderness emerge. The lumberjack whispers reassurances, gently guides the girl through pain, and, if childbirth is part of the crisis, ensures that both mother and child are safe. These moments crystallize the themes of love, trust, and devotion that have been gradually building throughout the story. It is through extreme adversity that the characters see the full measure of each other's courage, compassion, and resilience. By the end the crisis has passed, but both characters are profoundly changed. The girl has experienced firsthand the depth of the lumberjack's commitment, moving beyond trust into a deeper sense of security and love. The lumberjack, in turn, has confronted the reality of opening his heart completely, embracing responsibility not just for survival but for family and emotional connection. This pivotal moment strengthens their bond and sets the stage for the story's next phase: healing, revelation, and the solidification of their unconventional family. It represents the emotional and narrative climax where vulnerability, courage, and trust intersect. It proves that the bond between the lumberjack and the girl is not superficial or circumstantial. It is forged in fire, strengthened by shared hardship and capable of enduring whatever challenges lie ahead. After surviving the crisis, the lumberjack and the girl enter a period of reflection and emotional growth. The intense ordeal they faced together has left an indelible mark on both of them, reshaping how they view themselves, each other, and the possibilities of life beyond fear and isolation. What was once tentative trust has now transformed into a deeper understanding, a recognition that they are no longer merely two individuals sharing a space, but two souls intertwined by experience, care, and resilience. In the aftermath, the lumberjack becomes more conscious of his own emotions. The crisis forced him to confront the depth of his attachment to the girl and the unborn child, and he realizes that the solitude he once cherished is no longer sufficient or desirable. The forest, which he had viewed as a sanctuary for a lonely life, now feels incomplete without shared laughter, conversation, and presence. He begins to openly express concern and care in ways he previously would have avoided simple gestures like preparing her favorite meal, tending more attentively to the cabin, or sitting quietly beside her when she is restless. These acts, though understated, speak volumes about the softening of his heart and the conscious choice to embrace emotional vulnerability. The girl, too, experiences a profound shift. Having faced danger and survived under the protection of someone she has come to trust, she begins to internalize the reality that she is not alone in the world. The crisis revealed that genuine care and protection exist, and that love can be patient, steady, and unselfish. She reflects on the depth of the lumberjack's commitment, recognizing that his strength is not merely physical but emotional, a willingness to stand by her through fear, uncertainty, and risk. Slowly, she allows herself to hope, to imagine a life in which she and her child are safe, nurtured, and valued. This period also brings moments of candid conversation between them. They share thoughts, fears, and aspirations in ways that are honest and unguarded. The lumberjack talks about his loneliness and the dreams he once had for a family, while the girl confides in him about her own regrets, fears for the future, and desires for a life free from betrayal and harm. These conversations are not dramatic or overwrought. They are quiet, heartfelt exchanges that reveal the inner landscapes of their characters and further solidify the emotional foundation of their relationship. Nature continues to mirror their growth. The forest, which had once been a place of threat and isolation, now feels alive with possibility. The birds sing with renewed energy, the stream sparkles in the sunlight, and the once shadowed corners of the cabin are now filled with warmth and light. These environmental cues reinforce the sense of renewal and hope that both characters feel internally. They are no longer merely surviving, they are beginning to thrive in a shared space of safety, understanding, and emotional intimacy. By the end of, both the lumberjack and the girl have experienced significant personal transformation. He has embraced the idea of opening his heart to love and responsibility, and she has learned that trust, though difficult, can be rebuilt and nurtured. The crisis acted as a catalyst, revealing the strength of their bond and the depth of their capacity for care. They begin to see each other not only as companions or protectors, but as family, an unconventional, chosen family forged by experience, loyalty, and mutual respect. This stage sets the emotional groundwork for resolving external conflicts and solidifying their new life together. The growth they experience ensures that when the final obstacles arise both from lingering threats and the practical realities of their lives, they will face them united, with a profound understanding of what they mean to each other and the family they are building. The lumberjack and the girl have forged a deep emotional bond, but their lives remain shadowed by lingering dangers from the girl's past. The brother who betrayed her, or those he sold her to, have not entirely disappeared. Their presence, real or rumored, represents the unresolved threats that have hung over their heads since her arrival. This part of the story focuses on confronting those external dangers directly, providing closure to the lingering suspense while reinforcing the character's unity and resilience. The tension begins with subtle signs: unfamiliar tracks near the cabin, distant voices carried by the wind, or the ominous approach of strangers along the forest paths. The lumberjack, seasoned and vigilant, quickly assesses the situation, realizing that passive avoidance is no longer an option. He knows the safety of the girl and her unborn child depends on confronting the threat decisively. Rather than acting recklessly, he devises a plan using his knowledge of the forest and his physical skills, strategically setting traps, creating barriers, and leveraging the terrain to his advantage. Every action is calculated to protect them both while minimizing risk. The girl, now stronger and more confident than at the start of the story, participates actively in this process. She is no longer a passive recipient of protection, but a partner in ensuring their safety. Under the lumberjack's guidance, she learns to recognize signs of danger, take precautions, and even assist in subtle ways. These moments emphasize the transformation she has undergone, from fearful and fragile to courageous and proactive. The shared struggle solidifies the idea that they are truly a team capable of facing external threats together. The confrontation, when it occurs, is tense and carefully orchestrated. Depending on the narrative direction, it could involve a direct face-off with the antagonists, where the lumberjack uses his skill and cunning to outmaneuver them, or a clever strategy that exposes the antagonist's wrongdoing to authorities or locals, ensuring justice is served. Violence, if present, is purposeful and controlled, highlighting the lumberjack's protective nature without indulging in unnecessary cruelty. The girl's involvement, though cautious, demonstrates her growth and the trust she now places in both him and herself. Throughout this process, the emotional stakes are as high as the physical ones. The lumberjack's determination to protect them is fueled not only by responsibility, but by love, which has grown steadily since her arrival. The girl, witnessing his unwavering commitment and risking her own safety alongside him, experiences a profound sense of security and belonging. Every danger they neutralize together strengthens their bond and reinforces the foundation of their new life. Once the threats are resolved, a palpable sense of relief settles over the forest and the cabin. The girl can finally envision a future without fear, and the lumberjack feels a profound sense of accomplishment and protection that validates the emotional risks he has taken. This resolution not only removes external obstacles, but also symbolizes the full integration of their trust and commitment. What began as a bond forged in survival has evolved into a stable, enduring relationship built on mutual care, respect, and love. By the end of the narrative, tension created by the girl's past has been resolved. The characters can now fully embrace their lives together, free from lingering threats. The focus shifts from survival and danger to domestic harmony, emotional connection, and the responsibilities and joys of building a family. The stage is set for the final chapter, where the story reaches its emotional culmination, the birth of the child and the solidification of their unconventional but deeply loving family unit. With the dangers of the past finally resolved, the story reaches its emotional culmination. The lumberjack and the girl, who have endured betrayal, fear, and hardship together, are now free to fully embrace the life they have been building in the secluded forest. The tension that has defined much of their journey gives way to warmth, stability, and hope. This final chapter emphasizes the themes of love, trust, resilience, and the creation of a family forged not by blood alone, but by choice, care, and shared experience. The birth of the child, if it occurs at this point in the story, symbolizes renewal and the beginning of a new chapter. The girl, surrounded by the safety of the cabin and the steadfast support of the lumberjack, experiences a mixture of awe, relief, and profound love as she welcomes her baby into the world. The lumberjack, once a man defined by solitude, is transformed by this moment. He holds the child with tenderness and reverence, fully aware that his life has shifted irreversibly from one of isolation to one of responsibility, connection, and devotion. The arrival of the baby cements the family unit, making tangible the emotional bonds that have been developing throughout the story. The forest, which has been both a place of danger and a sanctuary, now takes on a new significance. Sunlight filters through the trees more warmly, the birds sing more freely, and the stream nearby sparkles in a way that mirrors the sense of peace settling over the cabin. The environment itself reflects the transformation of the characters' lives. A once solitary, survival-focused existence has become a nurturing home filled with life, hope, and love. Even the simplest actions, preparing a meal together, rocking the baby to sleep, or walking through the woods carry profound meaning, emphasizing the richness of daily life when shared with those you love. The relationship between the lumberjack and the girl is fully realized in this part of the story. Their bond, once fragile and tentative, has evolved into a deep, enduring love grounded in trust, shared struggle, and mutual respect. Moments of intimacy are natural and unforced. A hand on a shoulder, a lingering glance across the room, quiet laughter echoing through the cabin. Their love is not idealized or instantaneous. It is the product of weeks of patience, understanding, and growth, a testament to the strength of connections forged under pressure and adversity. Beyond romance, Part 10 emphasizes the broader concept of family. The lumberjack, the girl, and the child represent an unconventional family, one not defined by societal norms or bloodlines but by choice, loyalty, and care. Their home becomes a haven, a place where each member is valued, supported, and loved. The story leaves the reader with the sense that family is not merely inherited but built through trust, sacrifice, and compassion. The conclusion also allows for moments of reflection. Both characters recognize how far they have come, from fear and betrayal to safety and love. The lumberjack reflects on the richness that companionship and emotional vulnerability bring, while the girl acknowledges the power of trust and the courage it took to embrace a new life. The hardships they faced now serve as a backdrop for gratitude and the deep satisfaction of a life transformed by connection. By the end the narrative comes full circle. The solitude that defined the lumberjack's life is replaced by the warmth of family, the danger that haunted the girl's past is resolved, and the future stretches before them with promise. The story concludes with a sense of completeness and hope. A lonely man and a betrayed girl have found more than survival. They have found love, trust, and a new beginning together. The forest, once a symbol of isolation and fear, now embodies life, nurturing, and the enduring power of family.